Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Job with the Jims. My name is Jim Meyer, broker associate at Remax Gold. Now, you have a friend in the real estate business, and you also have a friend in Denver, Colorado, in the real estate business and in the midterm and corporate rental business. Erin Sprodlin, thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate you. Now, I've been waiting all week to ask you this question. Uh, and it's a long, boring story. So I hope you're sitting down. My great grandfather moved here in the 1800s from Ireland to San Francisco. He bought a little piece of land for 10 gold coins. Then he had a little family. He built a house, a nice Victorian in San Francisco. He married my great grandmother. They had kids. One of them married my grandfather, James Donnelly, who was kicked out of Ireland after blowing up a bridge. And I think the statute of limitations are up, so I could talk about that. Anyway, so he blew up the bridge, moved out here, married Mary Donnelly. They built a house. It just burned out a few years ago. My brother worked very hard, rebuilt it. Now we want to rent out the rooms. We've got it on Furnished Finder. We've got it on Turbo Tenant. We've got it on Craigslist. We rented out the basement. Those guys are gone. Now we need to rent out all the rooms. And we're having some problems. We've got a lot of scammers. And, if we were looking for scammers, we'd be in really good shape. What could we do differently?
Sure. So first off, you might have better luck renting out the whole place. I don't know if that's possible at this point because I don't know if you have people installed in different parts of it. But the rent by the room model is kind of the hardest model to fill because even though it makes the most money, you're talking about dorm style living. So people have to consent to wanting to live with total strangers. I think it's also the most work for the landlord because the landlord also has to manage all these different leases, people coming and going. And also, if there's conflict in the house, it's going to be your issue because it's not like they have a relationship of their own where they're going to internally deal with it and then pay you. Since they don't know each other, they're going to bring you into the conflict. So that is one of the issues with the rent by the room model, which is what you're talking about. But if you wanted to stick with that model, I would get off of Craigslist. I don't know about Turbo Tenant, but I'd get off Craigslist, I'd stay on Furnish Finder, and I would add to Airbnb because Airbnb has just added a lot of functionality for rent by the rooms. And again, I think it's in this space, there's been a lot of bad advice about not being on Airbnb that I totally disagree with. There's a heavy focus on Furnish Finder because Furnish Finder has been in this 30-day world for a long time. And I think Furnish Finder is okay. I think Airbnb is going to absolutely crush this space, just as VRBO or Verbo existed for many years before Airbnb showed up. Furnish Finder existed for many years before Airbnb started to have an interest in the space. So, I mean, your number one best way to get people in that place is to put your listing on Airbnb. The other thing you want to do is look at your pricing, make sure it's appropriate. Professional photos are really important. And then, like I said, so there's rent by the room, which is what you're doing. If you move into a midterm situation, it is also furnished. It's just one lease it's one lease per property instead of a lease per bedroom. So it is slightly less money than rent by the room, but it's also a lot less work as well. So again, this is one of those things where I feel like there needs to be more investment education or conversation around what your actual goals are and what you care about because for a lot of people, it's not actually worth it to work 30% more to squeeze out 10%, 10% more money. So some people would be happy to just take 90% of the money and not ever think about it. Whereas the rent by the room situation it requires a bit of help.
Okay, I would think that the days of being able to rent the rooms to nurses for top dollar are probably over thanks to COVID being pretty much over. Am I right?
Well, again, I think I would just say I think the money I think you're not going to get top dollar if you're only focused on nurses. I think when you focus on nurses, you are putting yourself in a very competitive category with a lot of other people that are very focused on nurses, when really there's just a huge opportunity with other types of people that need this property. And so the more eyes and the more demographics you can be in, that's going to push you to top dollar. And focusing on one demographic is really going to limit who needs your place. And so you're going to make less money off of that because you're going to have less demand.
Wow. Okay. You have dropped some incredible knowledge bombs on me, and you might have just saved the our family.